Hi, I'm Sherry Gustafson, and in this presentation we're going to talk a little bit about pocket pets. So when I talk about pocket pets, I'm talking about degus, hamsters, gerbils, and mice. This is a presentation that was presented by the MSPCA Small Animal Task Force, and all the pictures in it are courtesy of the MSPCA. So again, in this presentation we're going to cover degus, gerbils, hamsters, and mice. First up is the degu. So degus really have four main species: the common, the Bridges, the moon-toothed, and the Mocha Island. The common degu is what we see as pets. Unlike the Mocha Island and the moon-toothed degu, which are nocturnal, the common degu is diurnal. So it has moments of sleep and awake cycles throughout the day. Degus do come in other colors, including black, white, sand, and patched. However, the degu, like you see in the picture, the brown and gouty color is the most common, and it's really the only one that we see here in the U.S. right now. Degus are more popular as a pet over in the U.K., and that's where you'll see some more of the variety in the colors. Degu pros and cons. Degus are really one of the most intelligent of the small animals. They can be trained to use tools and have hands very similar to the monkeys. They are diurnal, so they are more up throughout the day than some of the other pocket pets. They're very expressive and vocal. They almost sound like a bird in your household at times, and they can also bark. They don't have much odor. They're actually a desert creature, so they don't require very frequent cage cleanings. I would say probably about twice a week would be sufficient to clean your degu. They love having time to run around. They really don't enjoy being held tight and cuddled, but they love to crawl all over you, jump on your shoulders. They're really interactive with you. Their coat colorations can look very similar. So these guys are social animals, and they love to be in pairs or small groups. But when you see them in a grouping, the degus in the U.S. here, their coats are so similar, it's very hard to tell them apart. So you can actually kind of tell them apart by the noises they make, and usually the small variations in color around their eyes. They love to dig, and they really aren't litter box trained easily. So you do have to clean the surrounding area around the cage quite often. They love to dig in their bedding and actually throw it out of the cage. Or as in one example, when I was fostering 7 degus, I made the mistake of putting the cage too close to the curtains, and they used their little sticks to pull the curtain in, and they hemmed my curtains. So they are very inquisitive, and they can get themselves into trouble if you don't keep a close eye on them. When it comes to sexing a degu, basically you need to look at spacing. Both the male and the female look very similar, except boys will have a finger width space between the anus and the cone. So you can almost see there's a little bit of a hairline in the boy, whereas in the females it's very, very close together. And these pictures are courtesy of Degutopia, which is a great degu website. Again, there's not a lot of information as degus as companion animals in the U.S., but it's a really nice website to check out. As far as degu nutrition, in the wild, degus lived on burbs, tubers, and bark. To keep your degu healthy, they do need hard pelleted food low in sugar, since they have a very hard time processing it. If a true degu food is not available, chinchilla food mixed with guinea pig pellets can provide enough nutrition. They do really need Timothy hay in their diet to keep their GI tracts healthy and to give them some extra fiber. Fresh veggies that are rich in vitamin C are essential for degus, so red and green pepper, cilantro, things like that can be given. And one thing to look at with your degu is their teeth should be bright orange. If they're not bright orange, that indicates that they are not getting all the nutrition they need and there's a vitamin deficiency somewhere. Degu common health issues. Some of the biggest health issues are diabetes. Again, they have a hard time processing sugar, so you do want to keep sugary treats down to a minimum. They can get kidney disease. They can get overgrown teeth, cataracts, strokes, URI, and tail injuries. You never want to pick up your degu by the tail. Degu housing. They love to explore. They love to climb, they love to gnaw, so lots of shelves, ledges, and toys will keep them happy. No plastic cages, they'll eat right through them and they'll be loose in your house in no time. We're bringing a group of degu from one shelter to the other, and it was only about an hour ride, and they actually ate through a hard cat carrier on the way, and we had them loose in the car, so we had to carefully catch all the Daegu and put them back in. So again, they're ferocious chewers, so you do want to have a metal cage that provides ventilation, but that they can't chew through. Just some other Daegu interesting facts. Daegus have a long lifespan, 7 to 9 years. However, the oldest Daegu on record lived to 18. So they are a small pocket pet that lives for quite a long time. They do need dust baths weekly to keep their coats looking great, so very similar to a chinchilla in that aspect. Daegus make quite a bit of noise, and each Daegu sounds a little different from another. So most of the noises they make sound similar to birds chirping, but they can also bark when they feel threatened. Daegus are born like guinea pigs, ready to hit the ground and run. They start nibbling on solid foods and exploring their cage just a few hours after their birth. They're a lot of fun when they're babies. In the picture, those Daegus, those are about, I think, 3 days old at that point. They do grow rapidly, but they're a lot of fun to interact with. So in this next section, we're going to be talking about gerbils, hamsters, and mice, some of the other pocket pets. What's the difference between a gerbil and a hamster, and what are the pros and cons? Well, gerbils are diurnal, so they're up more during the day than a hamster. Gerbils can live a little bit longer. They can live 4 to 5 years. Gerbils require less cleaning. Being desert creatures, they produce less waste. Gerbils can gnaw through almost anything, though, and they're huge escape artists. So no plastic cages for your gerbil. Those critter trails just don't work. They will gnaw through the tubes and be out in no time. Gerbils are social animals and being kept in small groups. Females are the more territorial of the two sexes, and you can introduce gerbils. If you lose one of your gerbils, males to male introductions are the easiest. Some of the pros to hamsters, or cons to hamsters, however you want to look at it. Hamsters are nocturnal, so they do sleep more during the day, so the best time to play with your hamsters is early in the morning or in the evening time. Hamsters typically have a lifespan of only 2 to 3 years. They can produce a lot of waste and urine, so they do require more cleaning in their cages with better airflow. While you can house gerbils in glass tanks as long as you're cleaning frequently, hamsters really should not be in glass tanks. It just doesn't provide the ventilation that they need. Hamsters tend to be a little bit more tolerant of handling in general. And Syrian hamsters are solitary. Dwarfs are more social, so if you're looking to have just a single pocket pet, then maybe a Syrian or full-size hamster is the way that you want to go, whereas gerbils and dwarf hamsters are usually a little bit more happy in pairs. And what about mice? Fancy mice or pet mice have a very short lifespan, only about 18 to 30 months. Males in particular have a strong odor, so frequent cleaning or neutering is beneficial. Up at Nevin's Farm, we did neuter all of our male mice. We did have a couple of vets on staff that were really quite quick at it, and that really did help with the smell. Mice are nocturnal, so just like hamsters are up more during the evening time than during the day. Mice prefer to be housed in small groups, easiest to introduce when they're very young or from the same litter. And they don't need a lot of space. A 15-gallon tank can comfortably house 3 mice. Of course, bigger is always better, as with any small guy, but they do require a little bit less space as long as you're cleaning their tank, or at least spot cleaning their tank every day. So let's talk a little bit about gerbil types right now. The gerbil subfamily has over 110 different species. That being said, the most common pet gerbil is the Mongolian gerbil. It was domesticated in the 19th century and brought to the U.S. in 1954. Mongolian gerbils are illegal in some of the United States, such as California, where that's one state that has them. It's illegal because if they got out, when the criteria on whether or not an animal should be allowed in that state is whether or not it can survive in the wild. And gerbils could thrive in the wild in California given the conditions, so they are illegal in that state. Another species of gerbil, the Dupricey, is a flat-tailed gerbil. You hardly ever see it here in the U.S. right now. It's a gerbil that does have a almost hairless flat tail. It kind of looks like a beaver tail, to be honest. They are not legal in Massachusetts. Other states I'm not sure about, but you do need a permit in many states to have one of those types of gerbils, a Dupricey. And different types of hamsters. There are two main categories of hamsters: the Syrian, which includes all the full-size hamsters, such as the golden, which you see in the picture, the teddy, which is commonly referred to as the long-haired hamsters, the Rex, which is more the curly-coat or short-haired hamsters. Some of the other ones would be the black bear, for example, would be one of the Syrian hamsters. Dwarfs can be broken into three subgroups: the Roborowski, which does have a dorsal stripe. That's one way that you can tell that. The Chinese hamster, which does not have, or actually, I'm sorry, the Chinese hamster has more of a mouse-like appearance. I don't have a picture of it here, but it has more of a pointed nose, and it has what almost looks like a half tail. So it's a tail that's longer than most hamsters, and it almost looks like a mouse with its tail broken in half. There's the Campbell Russian hamster, or the Nigerian, and the winter white, which you hardly ever see in shelters. It's a little bit more rare. So how do you determine the sex of a pocket pet? It's all about the spacing. So sometimes with males it can be quite obvious, like the picture in the right, but if it's hot, a lot of times they do have their testicles out. Other than that, they can pull them back in. So then you would have to look at the spacing. So with males, there will be a much bigger spacing between the anus and the genitals. With females, the spacing is much more close together. And typically with small guys, you can actually see a hairline in the males, whereas with females, it will be a void of hair in between the two spacings. What are some common gerbil illnesses? Tail injuries. You never want to pick up a gerbil or a daegu, for that example, or even a mouse by their tail. Gerbils in particular, if you try to pick them up by their tail, the tail can deglove. So the skin can actually come off the tail, and then the tail actually will slowly fall off. Gerbils can have bite wounds. It's not uncommon for a small group of gerbils to declan, which means that they can start to have fights in amongst themselves. If you ever see that, if a gerbil ever draws blood on one of its cage mates, you need to separate them out. The chance of rebonding those two gerbils is very slim. Females are more likely to fight to the death than males. Males typically might injure themselves and need to be split, but their fights typically aren't fatal fights. Scent gland tumors are common in males, and surgery can be done to remove, but anesthesia on gerbils can be tricky. The picture up in the right is an example of a scent gland tumor. Strokes are also common with age. I've seen gerbils fully recover. However, once a gerbil starts having strokes, they tend to become more and more frequent as the gerbil ages. Gerbil, hamster, and mouse housing. So tanks are the most secure but require frequent cleaning due to less ventilation. And really, wire spacing should be 3/8 of an inch or less. These are pictures of lots of different types of caging options. My favorite for gerbils is the glass tanks because they are burrowing spalls. So they do like to kind of hide in their bedding. If you fill a tank up almost halfway with bedding, they'll actually make little tunnels, almost like ants, and they can be a lot of fun to watch. Hamsters can also be in glass tanks if you clean them really regularly, or in glass tanks with cage toppers. Glass tanks are more appropriate for the dwarf hamsters, the ones that might be too small to be kept in a wire cage because they can slip out through that wire spacing. Full-size hamsters such as Syrian produce a lot of waste, so really should be housed in metal cages, or they can be sometimes in those critter trail cages, which is in the top, that multicolored plastic cage. However, those aren't my favorite because a lot of times the gerbils can eat through them. Hamsters can actually get stuck in the tubes, and you can get waste buildup quite quickly in the tubes also. All the small pets do like wheels. They do love exercise wheels. However, the one at the bottom, the old style with the slats, is really dangerous for most pocket pets. It can not only get their foot stuck, but it can get their tail stuck, and they can actually, gerbils and mice can lose their tails on those type of cages, or those type of wheels. Ring pens can also be a nice addition, so you can set up little agility courses. My daughter loves to do agility with my gerbil, so those can be a nice addition to kind of your gerbil and pocket pet housing. And what about bonding super smalls? Like I said, there are some super smalls that are social animals and do like to be housed in pairs. Hamster, for the most part, is solitary, a full-size except for the dwarfs, and really you only want to keep litter mates with the dwarfs together. Litter mates can coexist peacefully, but you do want to check them periodically to make sure they don't declan. Mice typically bond very easily, and many times you can simply put them together and observe for a few hours. However, male mice tend to be a little bit more territorial, so you might need to do a split cage, and sometimes they won't bond, so do watch them carefully. Gerbils, however, love company. The bonding process is a process, though. Split cages like the one up above are essential. Adult male to a male pup is usually the quickest. Usually you can do that within a couple of days. Adult male to adult male can take weeks for a full bond to happen, and female to female is usually the hardest. Unless they're introduced at a very young age, it's probably not one that I would recommend for you to try. Typically only female litter mates get along well for a long duration. And what are some common small animal issues? My hamster bites, for one. Hamsters are extremely nearsighted and can only see clearly within a few inches. Past that, they see only large objects, so go slow when picking up your hamster and make sure to give them time to focus. My pet's eyes are glued shut. Very common with hamsters, gerbils, and mice have sensitive eyes, and they can get irritated with bedding. You never want to use any type of wood shaving in your gerbil or hamster or mouse cage. It's really irritating for their nasal passages. So do stick with a Carefresh, or if your gerbil, for example, has red mucus showing and they're on a Carefresh, sometimes that can indicate an allergy to their bedding. So then you would want to try like a hay or shredded paper type of bedding. If your animal's eyes are glued shut, you can try saline drops, 1 per eye. If redness or irritation persists, or if there's discharge, you do want to see a vet, though. What happens if they escape? These guys are escape artists, and this happened even in my house many a times, no matter how secure I secure the cage. The best thing to do is count out pieces of food and place them in small piles in each room. Make sure doors are shut, make sure areas under doors are secure. Once the location has been determined, so go back in those early evening hours, count how many pieces of food are still in that location. Once you figure out which room your animal is in, bucket traps can be set where you put rams to go into buckets. The animal will jump down in and then they can't get out. Or you can put the cage in that room with the door open. A lot of times they really do like the security of their cage and they'll go right back in. Best time to search for your pocket pet is at night or in the early morning when they're most active. A lot of times you can hear them. I actually found one of my gerbils got out, and I found it a couple days later. It had burrowed its way into a stuffed animal snake, and I found it resting comfortably in the tail. So don't give up hope. Do you try to look for them? A lot of times you will find them, or they will come out looking for food. You want to learn more about small pocket pets? These are some great websites that I've referenced in some of the slides here, and some really good ones to check out. Daegutopia, Shawshene River Gerbils, Hamsterific, the ASPCA has a great website about small animal pet care, and the MSPCA also does. So if you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to answer them for you.